In every whisper, the word still speaks. Welcome to Whispers of Scripture. Is Christmas just a pagan holiday in disguise? Many people claim it was stolen directly from the ancient Roman festival of Saturnalia. Today, we are going to investigate this claim. We will separate historical fact from popular fiction to find the truth behind our most beloved holiday. This journey requires us to travel back in time to the Roman Empire. Let us explore the holiday that is most often compared to Christmas. This was Saturnalia, the ancient Roman celebration of the god Saturn. It was a week of joyous chaos and liberation for all. Saturnalia officially began on December 17th and eventually lasted a full week until December 23rd. Its core theme was subversion, a temporary overturning of all social norms. This was a time when the impossible became possible. What would this look like in daily Roman life? Activities that were normally forbidden were suddenly permitted. Public gambling, usually illegal, spilled into the streets. The dice were thrown, coins were exchanged, and fortunes were won and lost in the spirit of the festival. The rule of law took a brief but welcome holiday. The most startling subversion involved masters and slaves. In a stunning reversal of roles, masters would provide table service for their slaves. Imagine a powerful Roman senator pouring wine for the very people who served him all year. It was a powerful symbol of temporary equality. This freedom extended to speech as well. Slaves could speak their minds to their masters without fear of punishment. Any harsh truth or joke could be brushed aside with a laugh. It was all part of the spirit of Saturnalia, a time of ultimate freedom. People wore silly hats, feasted and drank excessively, and sang songs in the streets. It was a carnival atmosphere, a citywide party. Saturnalia became synonymous with freedom and the idea that all people, for a short time, could be equal. But who was the god behind this festival? The god Saturn is often identified with the Greek titan Kronos, but there were important differences. Kronos was a fearsome figure in Greece, rarely worshipped. He was known for devouring his own children out of fear they would overthrow him. A truly terrifying mythological tale. Saturn, on the other hand, was widely worshipped in Rome. He was seen as a god of agriculture, wealth, and abundance. The Romans even reimagined his story. The writer Lucian, in his dialogue called Saturnalia, gives us a glimpse into this more benevolent version of the god. In this work, the god himself dismisses the child-eating story as slander. He claims he was not overthrown by his son Zeus in a violent war. Instead, he says, he voluntarily abdicated his throne. He retired from the cares of office to live a more peaceful life. This shows us that ancient myths were not always taken literally. They could be reinterpreted and changed to fit a culture's values. For Romans, Saturn was not a deposed tyrant, but a retired king. He was the ruler of a lost, perfect era known as the Golden Age. Saturnalia was seen as a temporary return to this golden age. In this mythical time, the earth produced bounty without any labor. Loaves of bread and cooked meats simply appeared. Rivers of wine flowed freely, and fountains provided milk and honey for all to enjoy. In this age, there was no suffering, and humans lived long, happy lives. All people were good, and all were equal. This is the ideal that Saturnalia aimed to recreate for just 1 week. A brief memory of a perfect world ruled by a benevolent god. This ideal of a perfect time of peace and equality might sound familiar. In a way, it echoes the sentiment behind Christmas. The message of peace on earth and goodwill toward men is a powerful idealistic vision. But does this shared feeling mean the two holidays are related? Let us be clear. The Christmas sentiment does not come from Saturnalia. It comes directly from Christian ideals and the biblical story of Jesus' birth. However, this shared hope for a better, more equal world is a fascinating point of similarity. Let us look at more concrete claims. What about gift giving? This is a huge part of modern Christmas. Gift giving was also a feature of Saturnalia. On December 19th, Romans exchanged gifts called sigillaria. But these were not the kinds of gifts we give today. Imagine a gift exchange that is more like a joke. Sigillaria were small figurines made of clay or wax. They were often gag gifts. In fact, the more worthless or silly the gift, the better the friendship it signified. This is very different from our modern Christmas gift traditions, which grew from legends of Saint Nicholas. Another common claim is that Romans decorated with evergreens during Saturnalia. This is meant to represent life in the midst of winter. It seems plausible, but when we check the historical sources, the evidence is not there. We must be careful not to make assumptions. The writer Macrobius describes people wearing garlands of fresh figs. This was a nod to Saturn as a god of agriculture and fruit. He also mentions people sending each other honey cakes. But there is no mention of decorating homes with evergreen branches, a key Christmas tradition. However, there is one decoration that does connect the two holidays: candles. Macrobius tells us that candles were an important part of Saturnalia. According to legend, they were offered to Saturn in place of a much darker, older tradition of human sacrifice. A beautiful example of myth evolving. The flames symbolized light and life, replacing a grim ritual. Of course, there is also a very practical reason for candles. Saturnalia takes place around the winter solstice, the darkest time of the year. Before electricity, candles were the only way to light the long, dark nights. This common sense need for light is why candles are also important to Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa. It is a universal human response to the darkness of winter, a symbol of hope for the sun's return. So some connections are real, while others are simply myth. So how did these two festivals interact? Christmas and Saturnalia definitely overlapped. Saturnalia ended on December 23rd, just before the date later chosen for Christmas. In the late Roman Empire, as Christianity grew, both were popular. What do you think happened when these cultures met? This led to some syncretism, or blending of customs. But the popular claim of a conspiracy is wrong. Church officials were not trying to hijack Saturnalia to trick pagans into converting. The truth is far more organic and human. It was not a hostile takeover. The change came from the people themselves. Early Christians, who had grown up in Roman culture, celebrated Saturnalia as a secular festival, just like many people today celebrate Christmas in a secular way. When they converted, they did not want to lose their festive traditions. So it is more accurate to say that Christian converts preserved some of their old customs. They carried them over into a new context. They gave old traditions a new meaning. They were not stealing a holiday. They were redeeming the time for a new purpose. There was another Roman holiday that played a key role. This was Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquerable sun. It was celebrated on December 25th. This festival honored the renewal of the sun after the winter solstice, a celebration of returning light. The first Christian emperor, Constantine, was raised in this sun-worshipping cult. It was during his reign that we find the first reliable evidence of Christmas being observed on December 25th. Christians offered a powerful alternative to celebrating the sun. They celebrated the Son of God. This was a brilliant theological move. They declared that Jesus Christ was the true unconquered King, the true light of the world. Think of it like a modern church holding a fall festival on Halloween. It provides a positive, spiritually meaningful alternative to a secular or pagan celebration. Over time, the Christian celebration grew more popular. Its message of hope, redemption, and divine love resonated deeply with people. Customs from older festivals were either discarded or cleaned up and absorbed into the celebration of the birth of Jesus. The meaning was completely transformed. Despite this transformation, some Saturnalian traditions did survive for a long time. Medieval Christmas was far from the quiet family holiday we know. It was often riotous, unruly, and filled with hard drinking and gambling. It bore a much stronger resemblance to its Roman predecessor. One tradition that carried over directly was the Lord of Misrule. A person would be chosen by lot to be a mock king for the day. This king would give silly and demeaning orders to everyone, including nobles and clergy. This is the same idea as Saturnalia's role reversal. If you have seen Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, you have seen this tradition. Quasimodo is crowned the king of fools during the festival. This part of the story is historically accurate. It reflects the wild, Saturnalia-like atmosphere of the medieval Feast of Fools. This atmosphere of licensed debauchery made many religious leaders uncomfortable. The Puritans, for example, famously tried to ban Christmas celebrations. They saw it as a day of unacceptable, immoral behavior, a remnant of pagan wildness. They were not entirely wrong about its character at the time. So, what happened? When did Christmas transform from a wild public carnival into the warm, family-focused holiday we cherish today? The change did not come from a church decree. Surprisingly, it came from a writer and a ghost story that changed the world. This is a relatively modern invention. By the early 19th century, Christmas celebrations were dying out in many places. Then, in 1843, Charles Dickens published his novella, A Christmas Carol. This story of redemption, charity, and family togetherness struck a powerful chord. It completely reshaped the popular imagination of what Christmas should be. Dickens helped spark the Victorian revival of Christmas. He popularized the idea of Christmas as a time for family gatherings, festive food, and kindness to the less fortunate. He essentially gave the holiday a public relations makeover. The focus shifted from public revelry to private, domestic joy. The raucous, Saturnalia-like elements faded away. The Lord of Misrule was forgotten. Public drunkenness became less associated with the holiday. Christmas became warm, fuzzy, and family-friendly. And in many ways, Charles Dickens can be thanked for saving Christmas and creating the version we love. Today, most of the influence of Saturnalia on Christmas has long since vanished. As we learned, our gift-giving comes from Saint Nicholas, not Sigillaria. Our evergreen trees and decorations have their own separate, complex histories, unrelated to Roman practice. The connections are mostly superficial or coincidental. So, is Christmas a pagan holiday? The answer is no. It is a uniquely Christian celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. Could it have some historical neighbors with indirect connections? Absolutely. But they were never the same holiday, and they held vastly different meanings. The key thing to remember is that the meaning of a cultural custom is determined by its current use, not its origin. A date on a calendar has no inherent power. What matters is what we celebrate on that day. What meaning do we give it? Christians of centuries past chose December 25th as the day to celebrate the birth of the true, unconquered King. That is the tradition that has been passed down to us. It is a story of transformation, of light overcoming darkness, and of a new hope for the world. As we conclude our journey, it is clear the relationship is complex. Christmas is not Saturnalia reborn. Rather, it stands as a testament to the power of faith to create new traditions. It shows how culture can be guided towards a message of redemptive love. History is rarely simple. What are your thoughts on this history? Does knowing the complex origins change how you see the holiday? Share your perspective in the comments below. We would love to hear from you and build a community of thoughtful discussion. Let us learn together. If you found this exploration valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Sharing this message helps spread clarity and historical truth. It helps others separate fact from fiction and appreciate the deep, true meaning of our most cherished traditions. Thank you for watching.